What are you doing? The ceremony has started.
It was our daughter, Emily's wedding. Despite being the bride's dad, my husband hadn't shown up even when it was time for the ceremony. He wasn't at home either. Worrying he might have been in an accident, I kept calling him over and over. Finally, after the ceremony had started, I managed to get a hold of him. Hearing Stephen's voice, I instinctively raised mine. My bad, got caught up in some emergency work," Stephen said, chuckling. His voice didn't sound rushed, unlike mine. I was flabbergasted, hearing such disbelief on the other end of the phone. There was no way I could forgive Stephen for screwing up on such an important day. Then, someone who wanted to talk to Stephen appeared. I quietly handed over the mobile phone to that person. Little did I know then, this call would be the start of Stephen's downfall. "My name is Morgan. I'm a housewife who just turned 60. Though I say housewife, until just the other day, I was working as an office clerk. I had just reached the retirement age and had become a housewife, which I had longed for. My husband, 2 years my junior, is Stephen. He works at a different company, but, like me, Stephen is also an office worker. We met in high school. Stephen joined the track and field team I was a part of, which was the start of it all.
Stephen here. Pleased to meet you.
Stephen's first impression, with his energetic greeting, was not bad at all. He was serious about practice and a hard worker. Raised in a single-parent household, Stephen was well-mannered and very grounded. But no matter how great a person he was, to me, Stephen was just a junior. However, Stephen, for some reason, took a liking to me. After he asked me out, I turned him down at the time, but we met again at a club gathering years later.
Seeing you again after so long, I realized again I'd be happy with you in my life. I just can't do it with anyone else. I want us to date, with marriage in mind."
He asked me out again. Moved by his long-standing feelings for me, we started dating. Stephen was very kind, and I spent every day very happily. When we started dating, both of us were working and couldn't find much free time. Despite the busy days, Stephen never missed contacting me, and he spent all his paid leaves on me. When he proposed, he prepared my favorite flowers and booked the top floor room of a hotel.
"With you, Stephen, I think I can be happy."
The words Stephen once said to me, I also deeply felt them and accepted his proposal at the peak of happiness. Soon after getting married, we were blessed with a child, a boy we named Seth. After giving birth to Seth, I returned to work 3 months postpartum. However, maybe due to overdoing it, I fell ill. Still, I somehow managed to balance work and childcare, and a few years later, we were expecting our second child. I was happy, but balancing the pregnancy and a busy life wasn't easy. So, one day, I discussed it with Stephen.
"Stephen, I'm thinking of quitting my job."
I thought Stephen would accept my suggestion. However, upon hearing my words, Stephen made a grim face.
"What? Quit?
I'll talk it over with Mom."
Okay.
I was displeased that Stephen didn't decide right away, but my mother-in-law, Sophia, helped with childcare, including sending the kids to the childcare center. To me, she was a wonderful mother-in-law, so I nodded to Stephen's words and went to discuss it with Sophia.
"What? Quit your job? What are you thinking? Childcare costs money. I won't allow quitting."
But Sophia's words shattered my hopes.
But,
hearing Sophia's words, I clenched my fist. Noticing my distress, Stephen gently placed his hand on my shoulder. Now. If Mom says so, let's try harder, okay? Morgan, you can do it. Leave Seth and the baby to me, and both Morgan and Stephen need to earn money properly. Don't try to take it easy using the kids as an excuse. I bit my lip hard. I'm not trying to take it easy at all. And Sophia should know I'm not feeling well. I looked at Stephen pleadingly, but he quickly averted his gaze from me. It was a shock. Later, when we got home and I was feeling down, Stephen spoke to me.
You understand what Mom's saying, right?
I do, but if it was going to be like this, I wish we hadn't discussed it at all.
We're a family, we have to discuss things. Well, let's try our best, okay?
In the end, Stephen kept saying we should try our best, but he never took my side. Looking back, Stephen always had a habit of saying consult with Mom whenever something came up. I was foolish not to have realized it sooner, but we were unknowingly being manipulated by Sophia's desires. I won't be a bother to Sophia.
We have savings, and we'll economize. We can get by on just your salary, so I'm going to quit.
Out of a slight sense of rebellion towards Sophia, I declared this to Stephen. Then, Stephen began to get angry as if a fire had been lit under him.
I said let's try our best, didn't I? Mom also said not to run away from responsibilities to the kids. There's nothing wrong with what Mom says. That's not true. She's human, doesn't mean she's always right. I've been kind to you because Mom said to be kind to your wife. You felt happy because of it, didn't you?
I inadvertently swallowed my words. Because I wondered what that meant.
Wait, what are you talking about?
I started to say, then stopped. I was certain of it. Stephen was just a puppet being manipulated as Sophia wished, and I finally realized it. If the reason he was kind to me was because Sophia told him to be. I had a bad feeling. Even though all our memories could turn from sweet to sour, I couldn't help but ask.
Wait, did you say you love me because your mom told you to say so? It was Mom who said you'd make a good wife. She liked you when she came to watch the track meet in high school. That's why I came to like you too. Mom is never wrong.
I was shocked and appalled. I couldn't believe that Stephen's feelings for me were sparked by Sophia's words. But the fact that Stephen came to love me and we built a happy family together remains true. Believing that as long as I listened to Stephen, who listens to Sophia, we could continue to be happy. That's why I chose to keep working and raising our kids without quitting my job. And as expected, it was tough. We must have made the kids endure a lot. Yet, we never had to worry about money, and we managed to enjoy family trips once a year. Although I was slightly dissatisfied that Sophia always decided the destination, seeing the happy faces of our children made the trips enjoyable for me. And that became my motivation to keep trying, no matter how hard it was. But as the kids grew a bit, Stephen said, I think having 3 siblings is good. Mom says so too.
What?
I was taken aback. Stephen was certainly kind, but he never helped with housework or childcare. We are a dual-income couple. Whenever I said I wanted to share the housework, he would say something unbelievable like, men shouldn't have to do that kind of thing. Besides, Mom helps out with my share, right? She even takes care of sending the kids to the childcare center and helps out when you're sick. Half in disbelief, I asked again.
Did Sophia tell you that because you're a man, you don't have to do anything?
That's right. But it's only natural, isn't it? Stephen answered my question without any sense of guilt. Stephen not finding anything wrong with this was one thing, but Sophia was another. She may wish for her son Stephen's happiness and want to give advice, but Stephen is already a grown man. I think she shouldn't meddle too much.
I've been thinking, isn't it pathetic to always do exactly as Mom says?
I couldn't help but ask Stephen.
But, honestly, I'm happy now because I've followed Mom's advice.
It was pointless to say anything more to Stephen. Even if we wanted to have a discussion as a couple, Sophia was always indirectly involved. Every time Stephen mentioned Mom, my frustration was about to burst, so one day, I decided to negotiate directly with Sophia.
Sophia, please don't tell Stephen to do this or that too much.
Sophia's eyes widened at my words. What do you mean? I just want Stephen to be happy.
You give advice and instructions to your children, don't you, Morgan? My kids are still children. They don't know what's right, so I give advice to help them make their own decisions. But Stephen is an adult. He always thinks whatever you says is right, so he can't make his own decisions.
Sophia frowned unhappily at my words.
What are you saying? Am I the bad guy here? That's not what I'm saying. I just want Stephen to have more opportunities to think for himself. Following Sophia's orders all the time isn't good for anyone. So you're saying that I'm the problem here?
In the end, Sophia remained stubborn, no matter what I said. It's frustrating when communication fails like this. And so, I left my in-laws' home, unable to get Sophia to understand. A few days later, it was obvious that Stephen had become distant towards me. The cause was surely Sophia. She must have said something. Knowing it was a foregone conclusion, I decided not to say anything and just carried on as usual. Years passed. The children grew up and left home. Since I had confronted Sophia directly, Stephen had stopped using the word mom. Perhaps Sophia told him not to use the phrase mom says, and he was respecting that, but I'm not sure.
Now that it's just the two of us, it suddenly feels lonely, doesn't it?
One day, I said to Stephen, "Don't be selfish.
Mom has been living alone all this time. She's elderly, we need to do something for her."
"Right," Stephen said, looking away from me as if it was awkward for him to mention Mom. Indeed, I had been thinking about what Stephen said for some time. Despite everything, Sophia had helped with raising the grandchildren, and I was grateful. I had been considering living with her. Then one day, I got a call from Emily. She was getting married. I was very happy with the unexpected news and immediately shared it with Sophia and Stephen. However, their expressions were not joyous.
Getting married, just like that? She decided without consulting us?
That's what Stephen said first upon hearing the news.
How could she make such an important decision on her own? What kind of person is the partner?
Sophia reacted completely opposite to happiness as well. Feeling embarrassed by their reactions, I murmured,
"I had heard she was dating someone from work. He seems like a very kind person, and Emily looks happy with him."
I hadn't met the partner myself, only heard about him from Emily and seen happy photos of them on social media, so my knowledge of him was limited. But still, this was my child's choice of a lifelong partner. I understand their concerns, but I felt displeased with Stephen and Sophia's negative approach.
How can you be so happy when you've never even met him? Thinking back, Emily has always made her own decisions, hasn't she? High school, university, even getting a job was like that.
And they started to complain. I interrupted their words, trying to break the negative atmosphere. Anyways, it's Emily's decision.
I haven't met him either, but Emily chose him.
I trust her decision.
Sophia, Stephen, you should have a little faith in Emily too.
Stephen laughed at my words as if mocking the idea of trust.
Trust? She's still practically a child in her 20s. Letting such a child make a life-changing decision is insane.
There was no point in arguing. Though I felt displeased with his words, I just whispered,
"Just please meet him,"
and tried to settle the matter. Then, Emily's boyfriend, Yadil, and I, along with Stephen and Sophia, had a family meeting. Honestly, I thought Sophia had no business being there, but Stephen invited her. Nice to meet you. I'm Yadil. Just like Stephen once did, Yadil greeted us with a slightly nervous demeanor. To me, he was just the fine young man I had imagined. Sophia and Stephen asked Yadil various questions and even showed him smiles at times, which relieved me. I thought they both had a good impression of him. However, after he left, they both started mocking him in unison.
Choosing someone like that, Emily must be out of her mind. Deciding on her own like that. I can't believe it. She must be being deceived by him. That smile is so suspicious. To be fooled by someone like that, Emily is still just a child.
I was dizzy from their hypocrisy. They had been all smiles and saying,
"Take good care of Emily."
And then they flipped their stance as soon as he left. It was vulgar beyond measure. What's worse, it didn't stop at just talking behind his back. Sophia and Stephen also directly told Emily to reconsider the marriage.
How terrible! They put on a good face when Yadil was here, only to oppose it later.
Naturally, Emily rebelled and was outraged.
I'll try to convince Dad and Grandma. They'll surely understand.
I sided with Emily and tried to soothe her. In the end, Sophia and Stephen continued to oppose until the last.
Poor Emily. And Yadil is such a good person, isn't he wonderful? Whether he's wonderful or not is besides the point. What bothers me is that she didn't consult us parents at all.
I tried to persuade them multiple times, but Stephen was stubborn on that point. It sounded like an excuse a primary schooler would make, but it seemed to be a deep-rooted issue for him, leading to his absence from the family meetings with both families. Yadil must have thought he was accepted when he came to greet them, but he seemed puzzled by Stephen and Sophia's attitude afterwards.
Emily's dad must be feeling lonely because Emily is getting married.
Yadil's mom tried to cover for Stephen's absence from the family meeting, suggesting that he was just feeling lonely. She must think it's unreasonable in her heart but seemed to pity me, continuously bowing my head in thanks. I was grateful for her consideration.
If you want to get married, go ahead.
I won't help. In the end, Stephen consented to the marriage in such a manner. I thought to myself, who does he thinks he is, but I didn't say anything. Yadil works hard, and Emily does too. I thought they wouldn't need our help. Surely, if Stephen spends more time with Yadil, he'll recognize his good qualities. I decided to tell Emily to proceed with the wedding plans.
I wonder if Dad and Grandma will come to the wedding.
Emily, worried that they weren't happy about the marriage, sounded vulnerable.
It'll be fine. They're adults, after all.
I said this to reassure Emily. I was anxious too, but Sophia had come to consult me about which dress to wear, and Stephen had taken the day off for the bride's father's outfit fitting. Despite their complaints, they probably wished for Emily's happiness. And so, we completed the preparations smoothly and the wedding day arrived. I had to leave the house earlier than Stephen because of makeup. The groom's father needs to be ready by 10 o'clock. Make sure to come by then. Don't be late. I know. Stephen responded to my call without taking his eyes off the TV. And then, at the promised 10 o'clock. After I finished my makeup, a staff member from the venue came to me.
The bride's father hasn't shown up yet.
What?
I'm sorry. I'll call him right away.
Despite my warning not to be late, that's what I thought as I immediately called Stephen. But there was no answer. After several attempts, the phone just kept ringing emptily. Initially, I was angry, but gradually, I became more anxious and worried that something might have happened to him.
Mom, what's wrong?
At that moment, my eldest son, Seth, spoke to me.
Dad hasn't shown up. What? Have you got in touch with him?
That's the thing, he's not answering his phone. It looks like he hasn't seen the messages either. Seth patted my shoulder, trying to calm me down.
I'll go check at home. Stay calm.
If he had gone back home, it would be just in time for the ceremony. I couldn't leave. Seth's words were truly a relief at that moment.
Okay. Thank you. Be careful.
Thanks to him, I was able to regain my composure. I continued to call Stephen every few minutes. But the phone just kept ringing as before. During that time, I received a call from Seth.
Dad's not at home, and the door is locked. Then, maybe he's on his way. Thank you.
I told Seth to come back to the venue, and I waited for Stephen. However, Stephen did not show up at the venue at all. Even though Seth had returned, Stephen still hadn't arrived.
By the way, where's Grandma?
Seth, who had come back to the venue, asked me. Distracted by Stephen's absence, I hadn't noticed that Sophia was also missing.
Could it be?
A bad feeling crossed my mind. They might be planning to boycott the wedding together. In the end, the ceremony started without the two of them. I was waiting at the entrance with Emily. Originally, Stephen was supposed to enter with Emily, but since he was absent, it suddenly became my role. Yadil entered first, and then Emily and I were supposed to follow. During that waiting time, thinking it was the last chance, I called Stephen. Finally, Stephen answered the phone.
Hello?
What are you doing? The ceremony has started. Hearing Stephen's voice, I reflexively raised mine.
Sorry, got caught up in some emergency work.
Stephen said, chuckling. His voice didn't sound rushed, unlike mine. I was flabbergasted, hearing such disbelief on the other end of the phone.
Stephen! Look, the plane's coming!
That was unmistakably Sophia's voice. I was dumbfounded. I remembered the background noise on the phone. It sounded busy, suggesting they were planning to board a plane together. Okay. Disgusted, I muttered just that one word. His claim about work was obviously a big lie. But by then, I didn't feel like saying anything more.
That's the situation, sorry.
Enjoy the wedding. I was speechless at Stephen's cheerful voice. So, I decided not to respond and hung up the phone. After the ceremony ended smoothly and we were preparing for the reception, Yadil's mom approached me.
Where is Emily's dad?
He was supposed to attend today. But since I was the only one present during the ceremony, she must have had questions. I answered honestly. I thought it wasn't right to deceive someone who had been so kind with lies.
It seems he went out with my mother-in-law. What do you mean?
Yadil's mom asked, tilting her head, unable to grasp the meaning of my words. Anyone would think so. It's unbelievable that on his own daughter's wedding day, he would go out with his own mother. I found myself relaxing because of Yadil's mom's kindness. The kindness and the pathetic situation with Stephen almost brought tears to my eyes. Yadil's mom listened, nodding along. Then, Yadil's dad appeared.
Is it possible to speak with Emily's dad now? What? Over the phone or something?
I looked at Yadil's mom, who nodded, and I took out my mobile phone. Then, I started calling Stephen and handed the phone to Yadil's dad. After a few rings, Stephen casually answered.
Hello? What is it? Didn't I say I'm at work?
Stephen said that. Yadil's dad had put him on speaker, so the conversation was clear to hear. He cleared his throat and spoke into the phone.
Hello, this is Yadil's dad.
Yadil,
the guy marrying Emily.
Thank you for everything.
Sorry about this, sudden work came up.
Stephen greeted lightly, completely oblivious to the mood.
That's the situation, so please go ahead and wrap up the wedding without me.
Yadil's dad responded calmly.
Work. Did something urgent really come up for you? Wah. How rude. You've never met me, and you're judging me? I hold an important position at my company. If you think I'm lying, ask my wife, Morgan. It's not unusual for me to be called away on my days off,
Stephen said angrily. Indeed, there were times in the past when Stephen was suddenly called away due to a phone call. Although I believe it's a lie today, his statement was technically true. However, there was one person who saw through that lie. And that was Yadil's dad.
Having never met is because you didn't show up for the meet and greet, and now you're not here either. That's. And our company forbids working on holidays, so where exactly do you work?
I looked up at those words. Huh? Stephen also let out a surprised voice, frozen.
Sorry to say this. I kept quiet thinking it's not right to create a hierarchy here, but my husband is the vice president of the company where Emily's dad works.
That voice clearly reached Stephen as well.
The vice president?
Stephen said with a tense voice.
This is. No need for excuses. It's your prerogative how you act. But do you understand that your actions are causing trouble and sadness for Emily and Emily's mom?
Well. Stephen stuttered, unable to form a coherent response. His panic was palpable even over the phone.
Using work as an excuse to neglect your family is inexcusable. Especially when that work is a lie, it's indefensible. Consider whether such a person is worthy of trust as a company and rethink.
Yadil's dad left those words, then hung up and handed me the phone. I quickly stood up, took the mobile phone, and bowed. Was he my husband's superior?
I had no idea, and I apologize for the disrespect.
However, Yadil's dad said with a smile,
Please, don't apologize. I was just asked by my wife to help Emily's mom. What?
Yadil's mom smiled kindly.
Actually, I heard a bit about Dad and Grandma from Emily. She's always been worried about you, so I wanted to help somehow. I'm sorry if it was too much.
It seems she had been informed about Stephen's behavior and workplace from Emily in advance. That's why she comforted me without saying anything about Stephen's absence at the meet and greet. I bowed deeply again, expressing my gratitude.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry. Please, don't apologize. It's a wedding celebration after all.
Thanks to Yadil's parents, I finally managed to smile.
The reception is about to start. Let's move.
The mobile phone kept ringing. It was probably Stephen panicking, but I didn't have time to deal with him. Wanting to take photos with the mobile phone, I temporarily blocked calls from Stephen.
Congratulations, Emily!
Moved by my beautiful daughter's appearance, I truly enjoyed the reception with a genuine smile. After the reception ended and I unblocked Stephen's calls, my phone immediately rang. Had he been calling non-stop even while blocked?
Hello?
I picked up the phone.
What are you thinking? Answer the phone quicker.
I was at the reception. So, what's up? Although I was filled with disdain and anger towards Stephen just hours ago, the wonderful wedding and Yadil's parents brought me peace. Contrary to my light-hearted tone, Stephen said.
Was the vice president angry? To think, the vice president was Emily's husband's father. Why didn't you tell me?
I didn't know either. Predictably, Stephen was in a state of confusion and panic.
Not knowing isn't going to cut it. I'm on my way there now. I'll be there soon.
What?
You're coming? Of course. I have to apologize to the vice president.
I sighed at his words. The wedding was over. He didn't come for the wedding but is coming to apologize to the vice president. He seemed to be flying somewhere. I wonder if he came back. As I was heading to the entrance, I saw Stephen rushing in. Stephen saw me and hurried over.
Morgan! Where's the vice president?
I don't know.
Besides, why come now? If you could come, you should have been here from the start.
My voice echoed louder than I expected, attracting attention. Fortunately, that made Yadil's parents, who were in the lobby, notice us and come over.
The vice president.
Oh, the manager. Work's done, is it?
Yadil's dad said, almost mockingly.
Stephen awkwardly looked down.
I'm very sorry about today.
As Stephen bowed in panic. Yadil's dad spoke sternly.
You're apologizing to the wrong person. Have you apologized to Emily and Emily's mom?
Stephen looked like he was about to cry. All eyes seemed to be on us. Amidst this, Stephen also bowed his head to me.
Morgan, I'm really sorry.
Always following Sophia's words, and now, only after being told by Yadil's dad, Stephen finally apologized to me. The anger I thought had subsided was bubbling up again.
Where were you?
Caught off guard by my stern question, Stephen momentarily clammed up.
With Mom, thought we'd go on a trip.
And?
Where is this Mom? I left her.
Stephen muttered in a small voice.
Left her? On a trip? What if something happened to her?
I pressed Stephen harder.
It's fine, she wasn't alone.
That remark made me question further.
Not alone? Who was with her?
Then, Stephen's face turned ashen. I had assumed it was just the two of them. But his expression suggested there was another person involved.
No, well, there are people at the hotel, people passing by.
Searching for words while panicking, Stephen laughed exaggeratedly. He must have slipped up saying he wasn't alone, and now, he couldn't backtrack.
By the way, I heard the company forbids working on holidays. Where have you been going, lying about work? What?
Yadil's dad crossed his arms and sighed heavily. Stephen visibly shrank under the pressure. I could only guess, but there must be someone Stephen was close to. Probably someone Sophia also approved of, and imagining it was a woman wasn't hard. I was trembling with anger. Stephen looked back and forth between me and Yadil's dad, still looking for an escape.
We're getting a divorce,
I said to Stephen. He looked shocked, as if he couldn't believe it.
Skipping your daughter's wedding for a trip with Mom and your mistress? I don't ever want to see your face again.
Stephen turned pale and stared at me. Finally realizing I was serious, he began to lower his head slowly, turning paler.
Morgan, I'm really sorry. I don't want a divorce. Please forgive me.
Although I had tested him, Stephen didn't deny the mistress part and began to cry, tears streaming down his face.
How could I forgive you? I'm the one who should be crying.
Yadil's mom gently patted my back. Feeling not alone was incredibly comforting. Holding back my tears, I told Stephen.
The divorce is definite. And I'll be seeking alimony in the divorce settlement. But, Morgan,
go pack your things and leave.
From now on, go back to your mistress or Sophia's place.
Enjoy your trip. I left him with those words and walked away. Stephen broke down crying, drawing the attention of everyone around. I ended up living with Emily. It turned out that Stephen's company's president was Yadil's maternal grandfather. and Yadil's dad was the vice president and the next president. Yadil was working at a different company for now, planning to take over his family's business eventually. Of course, I didn't know the manager directly, but to find out he's Emily's dad was a surprise. He said, smiling. Despite the terrible things I had done to him, I couldn't help but feel guilty. Yet, it was Yadil who suggested I live with them.
We know Emily's dad was awful, but you're different, right? You've always been there for Emily, so Emily and I will always be on your side.
Emily's choice was right after all. I was determined to support them as much as I could without being a burden. One day, the doorbell rang. It was Yadil's parents. It had been 3 months now. The last time I had met them was the wedding. We were planning to have a dinner together. Then, Yadil's dad said something difficult.
We've decided to ask the manager to resign. What?
Emily and I exchanged glances.
I was concerned about the holiday work issue and did some digging, thinking he might have actually worked on a holiday. But instead of finding holiday work, I discovered he had claimed travel expenses for personal trips.
I was stunned by his words. We've never been taken on a trip. So, it must have been Sophia and... I instinctively held my head in dismay. How much trouble does he plan to cause? At that moment, filled with a heavy atmosphere, the doorbell rang again.
Yes, what?
Dad? Emily's loud exclamation drew everyone's attention. Displayed on the doorbell screen was, astonishingly, Stephen.
Vice President.
Stephen, having been let into the house, clearly hadn't anticipated Yadil's parents being there. Seeing his apprehensive figure, he deeply bowed to us.
Morgan, please, let's pretend the divorce never happened. I beg you.
He uttered such nonsense again. Since that incident, we had been in the middle of divorce proceedings. Stephen absolutely refused to agree to the divorce.
Stop tormenting Mom already. If you're so against the divorce, why did you cheat? I also heard about the company money you used for personal trips. It's honestly shocking to learn Dad could do such a thing.
Emily yelled at Stephen. Yadil intervened, but I felt relieved hearing Emily speak up.
Emily's right. I had no other choice.
After raising his voice, Stephen took a moment to catch his breath before continuing.
There was a time Morgan stood up to Mom, remember?
I couldn't grasp the meaning of his words at first and pondered. Then, I recalled the time when the kids were small. I had directly confronted Stephen about always obeying Sophia.
You mean, that incident from so long ago? Since then, Mom has been saying to divorce once the kids were grown. She said to wait until they were older to avoid losing contact with them. And after the divorce, to marry a woman Mom introduced, and that's how I got involved with her.
The revelation left not only me but everyone speechless. To think Stephen had been cheating because of Sophia's instructions and that it had been going on for so long.
But I still love Morgan. I don't want a divorce. The affair, I only did it because Mom told me to.
Hearing his words, I felt a profound disgust for Stephen from the bottom of my heart. Physiologically unacceptable. It was repulsive.
Can't you think for yourself? I'd prefer it if you had cheated on your own volition.
I lashed out at Stephen. But he looked at me, puzzled.
Why? It wasn't my decision. Disgusting. Just disappear from my sight. Since Sophia says so, and the kids are grown, I'll grant you your divorce.
Stephen bowed repeatedly, clinging to me. But I was so repelled I shook off his hands.
I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me. Mom, let's move. Wait, don't go.
Stephen cried like a child, Trying to keep distance, Emily led me to another room. If you truly love someone, sometimes letting go is also an act of love. Yadil's dad's words reached my ears as I walked away, bidding farewell to the pathetic husband who had always obeyed Sophia's words. Later, with Yadil's parents' persuasion, we finally managed to go through with the divorce. But he continued to seek talks with me. Just in case, I consulted the police. A restraining order was issued, and I finally felt a deep relief.
You hurt Steven, you bitch!
Sophia once stormed into the house, but to me, who had divorced Steven, she was now a stranger.
I had intended to live with and care for you after retiring, but forget about this bitch.
I coldly dismissed her.
What? Oh, is that so? Well, it was my fault, can't you reconsider?
However, Sophia, who had harshly insulted me, displayed a sickeningly sweet smile upon hearing my words. His situation was so comical I couldn't help but laugh.
There's no way I'd reconsider. It's good to be rid of the burden. Please have Steven or his mistress take care of you. You're quite skilled at manipulating Steven to your will, aren't you?
As I said this with a laugh, Sophia showed a frustrated expression and left without a word. Steven taking care of someone was unimaginable. He hadn't even done household chores before. Moreover, I heard rumors that his mistress had left him after he lost his job. It seems Sophia and Steven are set for a lonely old age. Serves them right. I continue to live happily with my eldest daughter and her family. I've become good friends with Yadil's mom, enjoying trips together and having fun days. Thanks to my job, I'm not struggling financially, and I've also received a settlement from the divorce proceedings. Our son, Seth, is also getting married, and Emily is currently pregnant, with endless happy news. Despite the hardships I've faced, there seems to be plenty of joy ahead. Life is still full of possibilities. I always want to choose the path that leads to my happiness. That's what I think.
I'm Chelsea. A few weeks ago, my father, who had been battling illness, passed away. I wish I could have shown him his grandchildren. Such words escaped my lips, along with a sigh. I got married when I was 25. That was exactly 5 years ago. At my wedding, my father and I made a promise. I'll let you know first when I get pregnant. But that promise remained unfulfilled. That's about the only regret I have about my father. Since his illness was discovered a year ago, I've done everything I could for him. I regularly returned to my parents' home and visited the hospital with my mother. I increased the frequency of phone calls and video chats. I did everything I could think of. Still, I can't help but wonder, could I have done more? I muttered. My mother, sitting next to me, reassured me. You did well, Chelsea. Really? Yes, your father would be satisfied. Just then, my sister Portia returned. I'm back, brought the lawyer. My sister entered the living room saying so. Behind her was a man in his mid-40s. I assumed he was the lawyer, and he handed me his business card. I'm Samuel, the attorney. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat. Excuse me then. My mother guided the lawyer Samuel to his seat. As soon as he sat down, my sister blurted out, I heard from this lawyer that Dad left quite an inheritance. It's not all for you, Portia. I know that. My sister, now in a bad mood, glared at me. I glared back. My sister and I don't get along. We used to be okay, but things turned sour when we found out about Dad's illness. One reason was my sister's arrogant attitude. No matter how many times I reached out, she never visited our father. Of course, I may have said it wrong. I might have been a bit harsh because I was worried about him, but her reaction was also a problem. You're not a child. You don't have to be so stubborn. When I said that, my sister retorted, I'm not being stubborn. I live in the city. It's not easy to come. It's the countryside. But you can get here in 2 hours by car. Those 2 hours are tough. It costs money. It's money that's important to you? Of course it is. I'm busy, so stop contacting me. And with that, she finally stopped talking. Even if she lives far away, she could visit once in a while. I always thought so. That's why our relationship deteriorated so quickly. In the end, my sister never visited our father, so our relationship remained strained. Sensing the tension, the lawyer intervened. Let's calm down, please. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologized, and the lawyer nodded before continuing. As I mentioned on the phone, I have your husband's will. When did this happen? My mother murmured. A few weeks before he passed away, he contacted me. So you went to the hospital? Yes. I had him write the will in front of me, with his primary physician present. It turns out they had arranged for the primary physician to contact the lawyer when my father passed away. So after my father passed away, he contacted the lawyer. In turn, the lawyer reached out to us. That's how it happened, and why I'm contacting you now, the lawyer said, pulling out a white envelope. He placed it in front of us. This is the will. That's definitely Dad's handwriting, I muttered, verifying the characters on the envelope. My sister Portia seemed a bit sulky. Never mind, just tell us what's in it. I'm busy, you know. Very well, the lawyer said with a wry smile, opening the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper. This is what was written there. It stated that besides the house and land, my father's inheritance included some savings and a storage shed. We knew about the house and land, but what's this about a storage shed? As I was pondering this, my sister angrily said to the lawyer, Wait a minute, you didn't mention the farm. The farm? Yes, the farm Dad used to work on as a hobby. My father used to run a company in the next town. But after turning 50, he began to feel his age. I'm thinking of closing the company. I want to take it easy. Is that okay? I heard this when I was in high school. My sister, who was in college at the time, opposed it, but my mother and I, concerned about my father's health, agreed. Don't worry about the money, Portia. We have enough savings. My father reassured her. Reluctantly, she agreed. After that, my father really did close his company and started farming near our home. It feels good to move my body while farming, he said, looking happy. Seeing him like that, I felt glad I had agreed. But my sister didn't seem to feel the same. She had said she would return home after graduating from college, but instead, she got a job near her university. Eventually, she married the CEO of an IT company she met through work. Anyway, that's why Father was farming until he got sick. My sister insists that the farm should also be part of the inheritance. The lawyer reviewed the documents after hearing this from my sister. He quickly found a note and said, The farm is rented land. Rented? I thought we owned a large piece of land, my sister said, disappointed. Indeed, the farm where my father grew vegetables was spacious, but it might be too much for us, who know nothing about farming. Maybe it's good that it's rented. That's what I thought. The conversation then shifted to dividing the inheritance. As for the division of the inheritance, the house and land go to the wife, the lawyer said. My sister grinned. So we can divide the rest however we want? Please divide the savings and storage shed fairly between you two. Savings means cash, right? I'll take the cash. How much is it? The savings amount to about $100,000. There's no need to pay inheritance tax for this amount. Then I'll take the $100,000 in cash, my sister declared triumphantly. But I couldn't agree with such a selfish arrangement. I strongly protested against my sister. Wait a minute, I object. Why? I'm the eldest daughter. That's irrelevant. You can have the storage shed, what even that is. What even is that, anyway? My sister turned back to the lawyer. Flipping through the documents, the lawyer answered, It's the storage shed next to the farm. You'll inherit the building, the land, and its contents. With land? My sister's eyes lit up. Even though she's married to the CEO of an IT company, does she still want more money? As I was wondering this, the lawyer told my sister the following. The land comes with it, but it's about 65 square feet, roughly the size of a small bedroom. A small bedroom? Yes, here are the photos. The lawyer placed photos of the shed on the table. Pictures of both the interior and exterior were displayed. The exterior clearly looked like a rundown shack. The inside contained only basic tools like hoes, scissors, and shovels. Nothing that seemed valuable. I don't want it. My sister grimaced. I peeked at the photos too. It was all very ordinary. These are sentimental items, but they won't bring in money. As I was thinking this, my sister spoke. Fine, I'll take the cash. You can have that dirty shed. Hold on, that's not fair. You agreed to the vegetable farming. What are you complaining about now? It was hard to argue when she put it that way. Still, if I didn't say something, she'd take all of Dad's inheritance. So we're good then? My sister pressed me. As I struggled to answer, my mother chimed in. As long as Portia won't complain later, I have no objections. There's no way I would. Then Portia gets the cash and Chelsea gets the shed. Okay, it's settled then. My sister grinned. Feeling uneasy, I immediately objected. Well, I'm not satisfied. Oh, give it up. But you're so greedy, aren't you? That's not it. You're such a hassle. You care more about Dad than money, right? My sister's words left me speechless. Of course, family is more important than money. Money is important, but it's not something to compare with family. While I was thinking this, my sister quickly ended the conversation. In the end, my mother got the house and land. My sister got Dad's savings. All that was left for me was the dirty shed. After that, my sister signed a document promising not to complain about the inheritance division. She left, laughing loudly. I was full of complaints. I couldn't help but vent to my mother. Mom, why didn't you help me? I did help you. How? You just sided with Portia. That's not true. I made sure you got the shed. Huh? I'm not happy about getting that shed. You might find something surprisingly good if you look closely, my mother said with a smile. I could only puff out my cheeks in response. The next day, I took the key from the lawyer and headed to the shed near the field. It was a 10-minute walk from home, a rural road where no one else passed by. I finally reached the field my father had rented. For the past year, he had been hospitalized, so the field was empty. I opened the shed with the key. Wow, it's dusty. The shed was quite dusty, probably because no one had cleaned it. Still, there might be something sentimental from Dad. Thinking this, I looked around the shed. Nothing special here. It was just a dirty shed after all. All I found were tools Dad had used for farming. They could be considered sentimental, but they weren't anything special. Maybe I should just take what's inside for now, I mumbled, looking around the shed. That's when I noticed something. Huh, it looks smaller than from the outside. Maybe it was the dim light, but the inside of the shed felt a bit cramped. Is it just my imagination? Thinking this way, I stepped outside the shed, but something still felt off. After pondering for a bit, I decided to walk around to the back of the shed. The backside was adjacent to a thicket of various trees. To my surprise, there was another door there. Wait, another entrance at the back? I gasped. When I looked from inside the shed, there was only a wall, meaning the only entrance was the door I had used. Yet from the back, there was a door. What's going on? I thought about it. A door on the back should be visible from inside too, but it wasn't. That meant there had to be a wall in between. In other words, there was a space accessible only from the back. The moment I realized this, I got excited. This must be Dad's surprise. Dad always loved surprises. He even surprised me on my birthdays. Memories flooded back, and I found myself tearing up. I quickly returned inside the shed and began searching for the back door key. If it was Dad, he would have hidden it somewhere in the shed. With that gut feeling, I rummaged through the shed. After a while, I found 2 keys hidden in the handle of a shovel. I went around to the back and tried one of the keys in the door. With a click, the door opened. What could be in here? The space inside was indeed cramped, only about 3 feet wide. A large safe stood alone in the space. Is this from Dad's company? I recognized the safe. It was the same one I saw in the corner of his office when I was a child. Nostalgic. I hugged the safe. This was a true memory of my father. I felt fulfilled. This alone made the inheritance worthwhile. But knowing Dad, this couldn't be the end. There's got to be more surprises, I muttered and inserted the second key into the safe. With a slightly rusty sound, the safe opened. What? No way. The moment I saw the contents, I was stunned. Inside was an unexpected inheritance. What should I do? Oh, I have to tell Mom. I locked the safe and rushed to my mother. After explaining the situation to her, I called my husband, and with his help, we moved the safe from my parents' house. Then it hit me. The contents of the safe were undoubtedly Dad's. However, if it's part of my inheritance, including the shed, I might have to pay inheritance tax. Better get this checked out thoroughly. The contents of the safe were clearly valuable. I decided to consult the lawyer. Inheritance tax? For that you should. According to the lawyer, it's better to consult a certified public accountant. So I got a referral to an accountant from a friend. I left all the complicated matters to that accountant. Half a year passed in this way. Just when I thought things had finally settled down, my sister showed up near my home. What brings you here all of a sudden? Well, I had some business at our parents' house. So you stopped by? Yeah, something like that. My sister's behavior was strange. It's funny, no matter how you look at it. Even if my home is close to our parents', it's still a 20-minute drive. We're not the kind of sisters who would casually visit, especially after the tension over Dad's inheritance. It's not a relationship that comes to play carelessly. I couldn't shake off my suspicion as I looked at her. Meanwhile, my sister, acting a bit nervous, asked, "Can I come in?" "Sure, but what's the matter?" "I have something to talk about," my sister said, forcing a smile. Reluctantly, I let my sister into the house. After I served some coffee, she started to fidget and then began to speak. "So, did you win the lottery or something?" "What? No, I didn't." "Then did your husband get a bonus?" I tilted my head, puzzled. I never buy lottery tickets because I'm not interested. My husband, who's a salaried worker, does get a holiday bonus, but it's not that time of year. What on earth is she talking about? Confused, I asked her directly. "Hey, what are you talking about?" Suddenly, my sister got angry. "What? Are you making fun of me?" "No, what are you talking about?" "Money! Money! You have it, don't you?" "Money?" "Yes, I heard about it." My sister began to speak excitedly. It was a story from a few days ago. Living in the city, my sister had run into our aunt by chance. The woman started the conversation like this. "I know how hard it's been for you since you lost your father. Are you doing okay?" "Yes, well, I visited him many times when he was sick." "Thank you. But you must be relieved, right? Getting such a big thank you gift." "Thank you gift?" "Yes, your sister sent me a $500 gift card as a thank you for visiting him." "A gift card?" Needless to say, what caught my sister's attention was the gift card. Hearing that I had sent it, she was convinced I had come into some extra money. "You got a windfall, didn't you? Just admit it." My sister interrogated me. "Ah, that's what this is about." I sighed. My sister didn't like my attitude and yelled, "What's with that attitude? Are you mocking me?" "No, it was a thank you gift." "So where did you get the money for it? That's what I want to know." "From the inheritance, remember?" "Inheritance?" "Yes, I got the inheritance, so I sent thank you gifts to relatives who had helped us." Upon hearing this, my sister frowned. "All you got was that dirty shed." "Yes, that's true." "But you can't sell that for money." "But there was a safe inside it. That's where the real inheritance was." "A safe? Real inheritance?" I carefully explained to her about the watches in the safe. They were all valuable, collected by my father as a hobby during his lifetime. However, I didn't know their exact value. On the other hand, the remaining savings were about $100,000. Considering he was a business owner who could retire early, that amount seemed small. That led me to think he might have invested a lot in those watches. "If they're valuable, you'll have to pay inheritance tax." my mother had said after seeing the contents of the safe. "What should I do, Mom?" When I asked, my mother thought for a moment and advised, "Things like this always come out. You should declare it properly." "How?" "Well, let's ask that lawyer we spoke to recently." So I consulted the lawyer again. I was told that if you inherit valuables, the inheritance tax is determined by their value at that time. I was also told that a certified public accountant could handle it for me, so I left it to the accountant. As a result, it was found the watches alone were worth at least $500,000.
With watches this valuable, you'll have to pay inheritance tax.
How should I pay it?
How about keeping the ones you're emotionally attached to and selling the rest?
Certainly, it doesn't make sense to me, who doesn't know the value, to hold on to such expensive watches. I'd rather someone who understands their worth have them. With that thought, I sold some of the watches. I used the money from the sale to pay the inheritance tax and sent thank you gifts to the relatives who had helped us. Those thank you gifts were the gift cards my sister was talking about. By the way, what I kept were items like the pocket watch my father often wore. I showed my sister the pocket watch as I told her this story. This one isn't expensive, but it holds the most memories for me. However, my sister frowned upon hearing my story. "What? You don't have any left?" "No, there are still some in the safe."
Where's the safe?
"It's at Mom's. The safe is too big for this house. It's the one Dad used at his company." My sister looked away, seeming deep in thought. I felt uneasy seeing her like this. But right after that, she stood up and said, "I'm leaving, now that I know where the money came from," and left. Considering how money-minded my sister is, I thought she might demand some of the money from the watch sales. I was relieved she left without making a fuss. However, in my relief, I forgot the unease I had felt earlier. My sister isn't that understanding. I had forgotten that. I was reminded of this late that night, when I got a call from my mother. "Chelsea, it's urgent. Come over right away." "What happened, Mom?" "It's just really bad." My mother was frantic and unclear. My husband and I rushed to my mother's house. As we approached, we noticed something strange. The area around my parents' house was lit up in red. "What's going on?" The reason became clear as we got closer. Several police cars were parked outside my parents' house. I pushed through the crowd and called out to my mother. "What happened, Mom?" "Well, Chelsea, you see?" According to my mother, it was after 9 p.m. Feeling tired, she had gone to bed already. Soon after, she heard strange noises. Sounds like someone searching for something came from beyond the door. "Oh, it's a burglar!" That's what my mother thought instantly. However, she was the only one in the house. Feeling helpless, she decided to escape through the window. Looking back, she saw the light of a flashlight moving inside the house. "This is definitely a burglar." Convinced, she ran to the neighbor's house and said, "Help, there's a burglar." Hearing this, the neighbor immediately came out. They too saw the swaying light my mother was pointing at and called the police, thinking it was a burglar. However, it wasn't a burglar at all. It was my sister, who had sneaked into the house. She had gone to rummage through the safe after hearing my story. Neither my mother nor the neighbor had any way of knowing this. Soon the police arrived, and naturally my sister was shocked. Realizing she was in trouble, she tried to make a quick escape. Of course, it's her own family home, so there's no need to run. Yet in her panic, my sister thought she had to escape. In her rush, she bumped into the open door of the safe. Just then, the already unstable safe toppled over, falling right onto her as she tried to flee. "So Portia got trapped under it?" "Yes, that's what happened." "Is she okay?" "She was taken to the hospital by ambulance, but she keeps saying her leg hurts." What on earth was she thinking? I was truly dumbfounded. Afterward, my mother and I apologized to the police officers who had come to help, feeling bad for calling so late. I also phoned my sister's husband.
"Wait, you're saying Portia broke into her own family home and got injured?"
"Yes, that's correct."
"What is Portia doing? She doesn't even do housework."
"I'm really sorry about my sister."
"That's it. I'm filing for divorce."
"Divorce?"
"Actually."
According to my sister's husband, She had racked up a considerable amount of debt. Apparently, she had been spending a lot on brand-name items. He had just found out, and they had a huge fight. In the end, my sister stormed out of the house saying, "I'll borrow from Mom and pay it back." Turns out, she had already used the $100,000 she inherited to pay off her debts. Still short, she came to me to scrounge for more money. Learning about the contents of the safe led to her actions, which in turn led to this whole mess. No wonder her husband was furious. In the end, my sister, who had fractured her leg, was hospitalized. Her husband came to the hospital and started talking about divorce. Naturally, my sister made a scene. "I'm not getting a divorce, absolutely not." But it was too late. Her husband had brought the divorce papers. Seeing them, she had no choice but to sign. Now she's lying in her hospital bed, stunned. There's a part-time job magazine next to her, so she's probably planning to start working part-time to pay off her debts. That would be a relief for me. As for me, I decided to move back to my parents' home after all the commotion. Of course, I'm worried about my mother, but there's another reason. I found out I'm pregnant. My husband and I talked it over and decided to move back home and have my mother help us with the children and childcare. I wish I could have told my father about the pregnancy while he was alive, but I'm sure he would be happy for us. So I'm looking forward to giving birth to a healthy baby.